Welcome to Flashpoint, the Fire Inside podcast, featuring leadership and team-building principles designed to ignite your inner fire and help you reach your full potential. On our program, you will learn from professional athletes, military and business experts, inspirational figures, leaders in the fire service, and other top achievers who have reached the pinnacle of success in their chosen fields. And now your host, international speaker and best-selling author, Frank Viscuso.
Well, here we go. We are here with the inspirational Nick Santonastasso, who I am very excited. We can call you Santo, right?
Yes.
I'm very excited because, Nick, you and I are buddies. I mean,
Absolutely.
We've been friends, for a while now. And I talked to you a little bit about what I wanted to do with this podcast. And the podcast, it's an inspirational podcast where we want to inspire people to, move on and go after the things that they want, to overcome any obstacles they have in their way. You embody that. You are such a great example of what it is to pursue your dreams.
Thank
and
you.
Not, well, you're welcome, but not let other people's opinions keep you down and define you. And I love that about you. But I want to introduce our listeners to you because some people, they may be familiar with you through Vine. You had more than 1 million followers. You were doing pranks, zombie pranks,
Yes.
even pranked Norman Reedus, which we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And recently you ventured into bodybuilding, but you were born with hand-heart syndrome. Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Explain to the listeners what that is.
Okay, so hand-heart syndrome, which I was born with, super rare genetic disorder that either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. And in my case, I was the 12th baby in the world that ever had that syndrome. And basically, they gave me a 30% chance to live. They didn't know if my organs were 100% healthy. After birth, they did do tests on my organs, and they were 100% healthy. So that's why we live in a state of gratitude each and every day.
That's fantastic. And now you were born without legs.
Yes, so I was born with no legs, one arm, and my right arm above the elbow, so a short right arm.
Okay. And on your one arm, you have
One finger. Yes.
And I want to explain this for the people that have not seen you.
Visualize, yeah.
So they know, because when I say you're a bodybuilder, and then people, hear what they would consider to be limitations.
Yeah.
They're not limitations for you.
No.
And this, I think, all started. I had the privilege of just meeting your father, just a few minutes ago, but I've met your mom before. This all started, I think, with your parents.
Absolutely.
When they tell you that they don't want to adapt things for you.
Yeah.
What did they tell you early on?
So from the earliest of ages, when I can remember, my parents sat me down, and like I said, I always circle back and thank my parents for the way they raised me. And they sat me down and said, Nick, the world's not going to stop because you're born like this. And that's the bottom line. The world isn't going to stop, and you're gonna have to figure out how to do things Nick's way. So each and every obstacle, each and every day, whatever it may be, you're gonna have to figure out how to do it Nick's way, because like I said, the world's not gonna stop just because you're born like this. And that's been my mentality for my entire life ever since they engraved it into my head.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible, because there's videos of you as a young kid skateboarding and doing a lot of things that kids do. But was there a point where you realized you were different than other kids?
Yeah. So when I was real young, I didn't realize I was different. I started to realize I was different when I got into middle school, when I got into high school, and I feel like those are the most judgmental times of your life. And that's when I really realized I was different. I saw that I had a chair, I had an aide in the classroom that pushed me around, and that the kids were taller and I didn't have legs. It finally caught on that I was different. So middle school and the beginning of high school was the time when I really realized that I kind of stood out a little bit.
You realize that now. Were you bullied? We talk a lot about bullying just in general.
Yeah.
In this society, but were you bullied?
I gotta say, I had the most amazing set of friends, throughout my entire life, and I was never really bullied. There were some just points and stares and the usual, but I was never bullied, which is a good thing. I just had a great set of friends around me, and I feel like I had some protection.
A good support system.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So you get into high school, and at one point you make the decision you want to join the wrestling team. You don't just want to join the wrestling team, you want to be a varsity wrestler.
Yeah, so at the time, I didn't have any confidence. And, I hated my body. I hated the fact that I was born with no legs and one arm. I didn't want to go in public. Didn't want to, look in the mirror. And I needed to find something that was going to instill confidence back in me and make me feel good about myself, make me just, want to live again. And at the time, all my buddies were wrestlers for the high school. My older brother wrestled for the same high school. And it was something that I wanted to do. And just like everything in life, I either 110% effort or I don't do it at all. So I made the decision my sophomore year that I wanted to become a wrestler. And at the time, my right arm, the shorter arm, was a little bit longer than it is now, and the bone was growing faster than the skin. So it was very painful. I couldn't really do any physical activities or touch anything with it. And one day I came home and I said, Mom and Dad, I want to be a wrestler. And, Nick, what about your arm? It's very dangerous. And I said, well, can we amputate it? Can we cut it off? And they kind of, froze up, didn't know what to say. And I was serious about it. It was something that I wanted to do. And that sophomore year, we went ahead and scheduled the amputation. They lasered off the bone and basically did a skin graft and pulled a bunch of excess skin and made a padding for me. So, it also, bettered the quality of my life as well when I did that.
Really? I mean, that's a commitment right there, just to say, I want to amputate this.
Yes.
But that's how driven you were, I guess, right? I mean, was it the goal of wrestling, or was it I want to get rid of this pain, or was it a combination of the two?
It was a combination of the two. Like I said, I needed to find something that, would want to be a part of something, make me feel good.
Yeah.
But I also, like I said, I was in pain with my arm, so it was the best move I could have made. I couldn't do bodybuilding, now if I didn't do that amputation, I would still be in pain. So I think it was an amazing move, overall.
So now take me through it. You start wrestling, and how old are you, junior, when you start?
Yeah, I'm a junior. But real quick, just to drop some fire real quick, I want to bring it back and show people a little bit of perspective. The only challenge that even entered into my mind was the fact that my arm hurt. It wasn't the fact that I had no legs and one arm, because I knew and I was confident that my hard work and dedication would make up for my lack of limbs. And that's the bottom line. That's the only thing that went through my head. So, I just like to show people that, limits are the only thing that, you put up here in the mind. And the only thing that I saw stopping me from wrestling was the fact that my arm hurt. And that was pretty serious. I didn't see the no legs, one arm thing as an obstacle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, how did you learn to wrestle? I mean, you had friends. I mean, wrestling's a tough sport, and a lot of kids wrestle from the age of 6, 7 on, and you're picking it up junior year in high school.
Yeah, I knew nothing about it. But I told my buddies, I said, please, do not go light on me. Beat me up this whole year. I need to learn what I need to learn to become a better wrestler. And so basically, just like everything in life, I learned through trial and error. What works for me, what I'm able to do, how I can take advantage of some things, or, like I said, just figuring out what works for me and what will, improve me and make me become a better wrestler. So maybe I could be varsity one day.
And so you're working towards it. And I had heard you once say that your initial goal was to just not get pinned, because when you get pinned, you're giving up 6 points to the other team.
Yes. So I knew if I wanted to become a varsity wrestler that I had to work on not getting pinned, not giving up the full 6 points. So I worked on my neck bridge. So I would basically, go in the room, and when we were doing practice, I would sit in the corner and hit a neck bridge for as long as I could and strengthen my neck, because I knew if they couldn't hit my head down, that I could stay stable and everything. And that was just one of the small things I knew I had to do to become a better wrestler. So yeah, neck bridges.
And what was it like your first match? Do you remember it?
Yeah, my first match, it was a JV match, and I was just happy to be on the mat, to be honest, being a part of a team and actually being a sport, and like I'm an athlete, I feel like I was always low key drawn to athletes and people who are in shape, and I was like, I wonder if I could ever be an athlete, as a kid. So I think I was just enjoying the moment that I was a wrestler and I was a part of the team and I was out there on the mat wrestling, but it was crazy. I don't know, there's just a lot of emotions going on. And I was just, like I said, bottom line is I was excited to be on the mat, on a sport, being an athlete.
And you've won a couple of matches too.
Yes.
What was that like?
So my JV year, they gave me a varsity forfeit for my varsity jacket, which I never even got because I didn't earn it. I didn't want it. So my first win, I pinned a kid in a JV fight night, like a tournament. I pinned him in a cradle. And basically, like I wrapped my left arm around his knee, like brought his knee to his head, and
kind of used the mat.
Yes, and then used his head and basically like my butt. I pinched it together and locked up the cradle and pinned that kid that way. And you know, I remember at first I was upset. I'm like, he let me win, like what, like, and I thought the kid let me win, but I really beat him. That's just the competitive part of me, you know, the competitive. Person in me.
Yeah, you don't want to give me. You want to earn it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You want to earn it, and I appreciate that. You've also played drums. For a little bit?
So everything, when I was a kid, my parents would just throw me into things and say, try it or figure it out. Just like the skateboard, like put me on my belly, and I started skateboarding that way. Or my mom would put me in a high chair and put food there and say, Nick, figure it out. And that's how my life was, all the time. So when I was in first grade, I had the music teacher come up to me and say, hey, the school's able to fund an electric drum set. Maybe we could figure out a way where you could play the drums. And I'm like, I'm in. Immediately, I try everything because, like, why not? Why not? So we figured out a way. We would ace bandage the sticks to my limbs, my left arm and my right arm, and I would sit on the pedals. I would sit on the hi-hat pedal and the bass pedal because they were electric. They could be wireless. So I would sit there, and with my left thigh, I'd play the hi-hat, and with the right thigh, I would play the bass.
That's awesome. That sounds like it was interesting. But see, what I like is, and I don't know if it's around the same time or not, but I like this transition now where you went into pranking people.
Yes.
Because this, to me, is where your story gets extremely interesting, because it's this and then what happens after. But you start pranking people. And on social media, you developed this huge following. On Vine, you had more than 1 million followers. So, I mean, you're an internet celebrity.
Yeah.
And you have more than 1 million followers, and people who are listening to this, they may at this point go, oh, I know this guy.
Yeah.
Because you were dressing as a zombie.
Yes.
And you're going into places like supermarkets and other places, and you're coming around the corner real quick, scaring the crap out of people. And I'm sure, you've probably done a lot of pranks I have not seen. I've seen so many of them though.
Yes. And
they just start going viral. Tell me about that. How did that start? Did you sit down with your friends and say, hey, let's do this? Or did it just happen by accident?
So, along with wrestling, I did the wrestling to make me feel good, to gain confidence and, make me feel good about myself. And wrestling gave me enough confidence to put myself on a social media platform like that. Because in social media, there's a lot of positive, but there's a lot of negative, comments. And I wanted to figure out a way where I can not only, inspire and motivate people, but to make them laugh, because I like making people happy. I like making people laugh. And, I was thinking there's a way for me to just be goofy online. And if, a kid or adult can see that and be like, wow, like, look how happy Nick is, and just change their perspective a little bit, or make them feel a little bit better about themselves or more comfortable in their skin, then I was winning. So I sat down, I was like, if we post something that has never been done before, never been seen before, like, it's got to go viral. And if it's good. So there wasn't I don't recall any legless guys dressing as zombies going through Walmart scaring people. So I was like, hey, like, let's try to dress up as a zombie and scare people. And I remember I was a senior. I was a senior in high school, and I made my first video, and I posted it around like 7-8 o'clock at night, and I said, I hope 500 people see this. I hope at least I get to see, 500 people get to see this video. And I woke up the next morning, had over 80,000 likes, over 80,000 revines, and it went internationally viral. I mean, like, Africa, you name it, NJ teen turns disability into a positive. And here I am, like, wow, I did it again. I found my purpose in wrestling, how I impact people, and how I can, just get people to get out of their comfort zone by seeing me do these things. And I did it again with the pranking. Well,
this is an interesting thing too, because you said there was 12 people that had.
Yes, at the time. Yes.
And you didn't have, you couldn't contact these other people.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Right. So here you are in a situation with social media where you have become an inspiration for a lot of people that were born, with similar circumstances that
Yes.
you were born with. And it started with that. I do want to, before I transition to where this has brought you, is talk a little bit about how, you've had a lot of celebrities that were following you and people that knew who you were doing, one of which being Norman Reedus
Yes.
from The Walking Dead. And you met him. Tell the listeners how you actually met him and what happened there.
So in under a year, I gained 1 million fans on Vine, and I was kind of labeled as like the zombie king, the prankster. I was doing it, and I got contacted by Fox International. They said, hey, we want to pull a prank on Norman Reedus. You're the guy. Like, if you want to do it, we'd love to do it. They're going to be doing a press conference all around the world, and they're stopping in Tokyo, Japan. If you want to fly out, we'll fly you out. And basically hire you to do this prank. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. So I had the opportunity to fly my parents out to Tokyo, Japan to do this prank. And it was cool because they were saying, you have to stay hidden, because if Norman sees you, he already knows who you are. And I was like, wow, and it kind of just put things in perspective to see how big I really got on Vine and how many people knew who I was and knew what I was doing. So that's how that, came about.
And so you're in where he's doing an interview. You're kind of in the room.
Yes.
Underneath what?
So we did the makeup. It was like 4 hours of makeup with Greg Nicotero. So we were in like, zombie form, like professional zombie form. And they brought Norman into a room and said that they were doing an interview for Japanese television. And so there was nothing in the room, just Norman and the camera guy. And then they said, the camera's not working. We got to switch the batteries out. We'll be right back. And they pushed me in a trolley. I was under a trolley, and they had snacks for him, and they put it like right next to him. And here I am, like, oh my God, like behind this curtain is Norman Reedus, like he's right there. I could see his shadow, and I'm like just freaking out. And I had an earpiece in. They had a control room where they had cameras everywhere. Like it was crazy.
And you have Andrew Lincoln, right?
Yes, in my ear.
In your ear.
Yeah, I have Andrew Lincoln, Rick Grimes on the show, and I had him in my ear, and he's like, I'll tell you, our line is go Nick go. So when you hear that, jump out. And I was like, okay. So here I am. I'm super scared, and I'm like, oh my God, like what happens if I can't get my zombie screech out, And they left, and the room was quiet. And then in my ear, I hear, go Nick go. And I'm like, so I jump out and I do my little thing, and he got scared, which I was super surprised because this guy's around zombies all the time. He's like literally like filming with like, zombies chasing him all day. So
good point.
Yeah, I got a reaction out of him. He called me a jerk, and he's like, I already, I love you, man. I already knew who you were. He's like, and that's so cool to me.
Well, I know he sends stuff out that you've done even recently with bodybuilding.
Oh, yes.
He sent stuff out that you've done. So I know he follows you.
Yes.
Which must be a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
And I know there's other celebrities who follow you. We'll get into some of them in a minute, but so this prank is pretty good. It goes viral just like every other prank that you've done. I know that afterwards, well, you spent time when you were out there in Japan, though.
Yes.
Right? You went and you did a little
We hung out afterwards, yeah.
Your tattoos, they look like, they have a Japanese
Japanese theme.
Culture or theme to it. Yeah. Did that happen after you came back?
Yeah. So, being in Japan, Tokyo, huge city, right?
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of people. And the one thing that I notice is, with their culture, they're so respectful. And, from little things, like if you dropped your wallet on the street, like it would either be there or be in the lost and found, and it would never be touched. The cops don't carry guns. Like people don't shoplift.
I'm told that little kids, they'll go on trains by themselves because everybody kind of looks after them.
Yes.
Even when they're alone.
Yes. Yeah. So it's amazing. But the one thing that I noticed is, from living in America and going to Japan and going into Tokyo, that I was like, with all these people, it's basically like a New York, huge city, and not one person ever stared at me, not one person ever, tapped on his buddy and was like, look at that, or, nothing. It was just, it was crazy. It was mind blowing.
See,
how
I would
respectful.
even think they would stare at you just because you're American and maybe look a little different. And I don't mean that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, the fact that I guess because you travel sometimes in a wheelchair. Were you in a wheelchair when you were going around?
Yes.
Okay. I've very rarely do I even see you in a wheelchair. I see you moving around a lot without it. But when you're moving there, nobody looks at you. Did people stare at you here in America?
Always. Yeah, every day, And I take notice. I mean, my friends look out for me, but I've been doing it my whole life. I've been seeing it my whole life. So, little things, they don't really bother me anymore. But, I will go in public and people, like, if they're with a group, they'll tap on someone's shoulder and be like, look at that, or, whatever it may be. It happens a lot here. But it's just something that I kind of just, brush off. It don't really bother me.
Raising children, I have 3 boys, and 2 of them, as you know, are very young.
Yes.
And raising children, I find it to be challenging because there's so many things you want to teach a child, but you wait for opportunities for some of them to happen. The day I met you, you were on the beach. You were with some family members, some friends of mine.
Yes.
And we were going to meet them. I've never heard about you. I've never known about you. So when I was walking up towards you, I saw you from a distance and I thought, oh no, I never really talked to my kids about if somebody looks a little different than them and not the stare. And so I actually just knelt down and I said, and I've told you this before, so I hope you don't mind.
No, you're good.
I've said to my children, I said, listen, there's a boy up here that looks a little different than you and I do. And I just mentioned he doesn't have legs. And I remember Nicholas saying, where are they?
Yeah.
And I didn't, I didn't need to get into that with him, but I said, well, he just doesn't have any. I said, but I just don't want you to stare because he's just like you and me.
Yeah.
20 minutes later, you're running around with them. You're playing wiffle ball with them. You're digging for sand crabs with them. And since then, you have become one of the most beloved members of our family because when you come over, everybody gets excited that Nick is coming over. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you because it's you've helped make my job easy as a parent because now when they see somebody that does look a little bit different than us and I mean in any way.
Yeah, in any aspect.
They don't look at it like it's an unusual thing anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a key moment. I shared that story because I think you know this, but when I speak and I give a Step Up and Lead seminar, there's a section where I talk about some people that I find really inspirational. You're one of them. And I don't always tell the story of how we met. I just talk about what you're doing with your life. But I told the story one time that I just shared of how we met and what I said to my kids. Well, a guy came up to me during a break and he says, I want to thank you for that story because my daughter has 2 prosthetic legs.
Wow. And
she was born that way. And I want her to go online and research Nick so she could watch some of his videos because I think that's going to help her because she is at that age where you were when she started realizing she's different.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the awesome things about the gift that you can give people. It's not just that. It goes well beyond that. It goes to a point where you don't accept any limitations because I think it was less than a year ago you made a decision you're going to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Tell everybody about that because when you first shared with me that you want to be a bodybuilder, I thought, man, this is great. It's awesome. But I did not understand how you were going to work out. How did you start working out?
So, do you want me to talk about the announcement of how I did it or just training wise?
Well, you know what? Let's start with the announcement because let's go back to Vine for a minute.
Yeah.
You have more than 1 million followers on Vine and then Vine disappears.
So, so like I said, I had all these people following me for my pranks.
Yeah.
And, I kind of got a glimpse of my potential and I was like, I'm much more, I could be much more than just a prankster.
Right.
And, I made an announcement and I told everyone, I said, some of you are going to support me, some of you are not. I respect, all of you. I said, I'm going to become a fitness model. I'm going to become a bodybuilder. I'm going to become a keynote speaker. And I'm going to break into the mainstream modeling industry.
You just put it all out there.
Put it all out there. And I said, I don't know how fast it's going to happen, but it will. And this is what I'm going to do. Like I said, if you want to support me, you support me. If you don't, you don't. And how I got into lifting is my best friend, Josh Foca, we wrestled together. And he was, he's always been a big dude in the gym. And he kind of took me under his wing. And it was just going into the gym and trial and error, just like my life, figuring out what works for me. And still to this day, like with who I train with now, we're always adapting things. And my training's getting better every single day, the way I can contract things and the way.
I see your videos. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I didn't even know much. I wasn't even lifting right, when I started. But I always kept that vision in my head of what I wanted to look like. And that's so important because, you always have to, do a self-reflect and ask why. Why are you doing what you're doing right now? and always keep that vision in mind. And I knew, like I said, just with the wrestling, this is what I'm writing my book about, is how I implemented confidence into all these industries and all these areas of my life to, better myself and to become successful.
Right.
So like I said, with fitness, I was confident in my ability that I would learn the knowledge I needed to learn about nutrition and training to get my body to where it needed to be, so people knew I wasn't playing around.
And now you do some awesome things, because lifting's about, I guess, I don't know how to explain it, but symmetrical work. I mean, when I'm bench pressing, I can't just bench with one arm.
Yeah.
You put the weights around your finger, and you have someone else apply pressure on your shoulder just to try to find that right balance.
Yes.
Right. And you do similar things when you're doing, pull-ups or
flies,
working your back,
everything.
flies, everything. Your videos, listen, people need to understand this, that I think that if they're not following you on Instagram, because that's probably the number one social media outlet you're using now, if they're not following you on Instagram, they should follow you. They'll see your name when we put this episode out, but Nick Santonastasso.
Yes.
And I think that it's inspirational watching what you're doing, but it's also inspirational whether or not they want to be a bodybuilder or work out or not, just because you're just overcoming so much where other people would consider it a limitation, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
You do a lot of things that I guess a lot of people take for granted. Driving a car, you have your own car.
Yes.
Cooking. You told a great story once about cooking a grilled cheese sandwich for the first time.
Yeah.
And wishing you made two.
Yep. It took me so long to make the one.
Yeah.
That by the time I ate it, I was like, man, I should have made two.
Okay, so here you are. Now you're working out. You sign up to to enter a bodybuilding contest, which you just completed.
Yes. Last
time we spoke in person, you told me that you had signed up for it. You're living out in Tampa. You're training. Tell me about it.
I'm loving life. I promised everyone. The first year I got into fitness, I was posting these videos and people weren't really, taking me serious, which I kind of wouldn't too. I didn't really know what I was doing. But like I said, my knowledge in all the areas got to where it needed to be to, train more efficient and get my body, better. My physique started getting better. And I got to the point, where I landed some gigs. I worked with Reebok. And I promised everyone, not only myself, but my family and my supporters, that I will get on the competitive bodybuilding stage before the year ends. And to show people, there are going to be most of the time, there are going to be things in life where you're just not ready to do. Well, you don't think you're ready. You'll never be ready. You just have to take the leap, right? So it was just to show people that, I knew my symmetry wasn't perfect. I'm always working to get a better physique. I knew that I would have rather step on stage a little bit later, but I'm super happy with what the package I brought.
Yeah.
But it was, so I signed up for the bodybuilding competition, and I moved to Tampa, and ever since I moved to Tampa, I was on prep for this competition. So with my diet and with my training, so I went on about 11 to 12 week prep, and with Men's Physique, they judge you from your waist up, symmetry wise, best physique, best abs, just everything's proportionate. You look great, basically, like a perfect physique.
Mm-hmm.
And I took third in Men's Physique novice. So I beat other people, which kind of was like a switch for me, because with competitive bodybuilding, genetics, has a lot to do with it, whether your frame is good enough to, compete. And that was a switch when I beat another person. I was like, okay, I could do this. This is something that I could do. So yeah, I did 11-week prep, and I came out one of the most conditioned athlete in my class. I just need a little more size.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so this is a pretty great moment for you. I mean, you take a trophy. Your parents are there.
Yes.
You're proving again that you can do something that other people told you maybe. I don't know if they even told you can't, but that maybe people may have doubted whether or not you can do it. You have to understand that the people we have on this podcast, Frankie Edgar, a colonel in the Army. We've had the head coach for Rutgers. All these guys were told by other people they couldn't do things.
Yes.
So this is not an unusual thing. This is, I think, what's special about having you on the show, is because there's people listening right now that are doubting themselves. And I just want them to know you don't have to have it all figured out. Sometimes you just need to take that first step, which leads to the second step. And I heard I think it was Brian Tracy who may have said, and I'm sorry that I don't know for sure if it was, but I believe it was him that said, every day do 4 or 5 things that can help you get to your goal, that can help you accomplish your goal.
Yes.
Just take action in that direction because, and he didn't say this, but you throw enough mud against the wall, some of it's going to stick.
Yeah.
Eventually something's going to happen. Well, now with bodybuilding and with the things that you're doing, you're writing a book, you're doing a lot of public speaking. This is a big reason why I wanted to have you on too, because I want people to know, hey, if they're looking to bring in a speaker, you're a great guy to bring in because you tell your story, you inspire people, you're an athlete, you've overcome a lot. But at the same time, you have people bringing you in to speak to them. That's a pretty remarkable client list, if you will.
Thank you.
I mean, you're going to speak to Tony Robbins people.
Yeah, so Unleash the Power Within, I'm in West Palm Beach, I think November 18th, I'm speaking to Tony's team.
You're speaking to Tony's team.
The 600 team members that I'll be able to, preach my story and let them know what I'm about. So I think that's going to be a great time. I can't wait.
West Palm Beach, you have Cabo coming up and some other places as well.
Yes, Cabo, LA.
And you speak to you'll speak to athletes, you'll speak to business people. You and I have had a great opportunity to speak at a real estate convention together. You'll speak to other kids that maybe
churches,
were born.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been grateful enough to be able to relate to a lot of people, not just a certain section of people. So, kids, adults, athletes, whatever it may be, sales teams, I always, through my story, I can relate in a lot of ways to other people. Right. So like I said, I'm grateful to be able to talk to different groups of people, not just one.
What's your main message from your mouth? I want people to hear. What's your message that you want people to leave with? What do you want them to feel or think when they leave after hearing Nick speak?
The bottom line is, you can listen to these motivational videos, you can listen to these speakers, you can do whatever you want to do, you can listen to whatever you want to listen, but the only person that's going to make a change within yourself, the only person that is going to, help you reach your goal and get you closer to your vision each and every day is yourself. Right. And, it all starts with believing in yourself and believing in your ability to, obtain that vision. And, people don't understand that. Like, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in your ability to, reach your goal or, do whatever you need to do, no one else is going to believe in you. And the other thing they need to realize is the only person that needs to believe in you is you. Who cares about everyone else? Where would I be? Where would you be? Where would my parents be if they listened to all the limitations the doctors gave them? Where would we be if we listened to all these naysayers, all these people that just, don't think like us, don't operate like us? So at the end of the day, motivation is motivation, but implementing things into your life and actually taking action is all comes down to you.
Yeah, because motivation, that'll wear off.
You already have it. Yeah, you all of you listening to this podcast right now, you already are motivated because you're like, you want to listen to this. You already have that fire in your belly. Like I said, but the only person that is going to make a drastic change in your life, whatever it's physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, is you. And no one else is going to do that for you.
That's awesome. What's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
The best advice someone has given to me is, like I said, there are no limits. The only limits you have are the ones you put in your head. And like I said, what I just said, I kind of take a lot of my own advice. And sometimes, I do speeches and I'm like, wow, like, listen to yourself. Like, you just said that, like,
I don't think that's unusual. I do the same thing. There's sometimes when I'm giving a more motivational talk.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to the audience. Sometimes I'm sending them the message that I need to hear at that moment too. You ever do that?
Absolutely. And so, coming down to it all starts believing in yourself. Nothing is going to happen for you if you don't truly believe in it. And that, we all have, I don't have any superpowers. I wish I did because we'd be marketing that too, but I don't have any superpowers. Everyone has the ability to do great things. It just, it all comes down to doing the work and taking action.
How do you overcome adversities in your life? Like if you get depressed or down on yourself about something, if you fail to reach a goal, what are some of the things you do to bounce back up? Is it just
Why? Your why.
your why?
Your why, the golden circle. What makes you happy? What makes you feel fulfilled? And you basically you got to start from the problem and figure out, what makes me feel good? What makes me, when I rest my head at night, I can be like, wow, man, like I had a great day. Like I did this. Like what makes you feel good, and go from there, because, how important is that to doing what you love? There's so many people. There's so many people that, the majority of people are living lives that they don't want to live, that they're unhappy with, whether it's the job or whatever they're doing. And, the bottom line is, this is your life. You have one life. So do what you love. And when you do what you love and you learn so much about it, and you basically sculpt your craft, like the success will come with it. You'll be able to do what you love for the rest of your life. It's just so many people are just scared to do what they love.
Yeah, maybe they're scared. Maybe they become trapped or just, complacent. I'm not sure what it is. I do agree with you on that. You talked about when you put your head on the pillow at night. What about when you wake up? What's one of the first things you do? Because I got to tell you, you're one of the most positive people I know. Anytime that I call you or interact with you on social media, I feel better about myself. And I think that's a great quality. You're welcome. It's a great quality in a person. When you feel better about yourself when you're around somebody, that's special.
Yeah.
What do you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you have any ritual or anything you do? Habits?
Grateful. You wake up, 5 things you're grateful for, whether it's in your mind or whether you write it down. And if you write it down, you'll notice that it changes over time. So it's cool to write it down. But it's emotionally impossible to be upset and grateful at the same time. So, when I wake up, the first thing I think is, I got another day. Wow, like I'm alive. I can feel, I can touch, I can smell. I'm in a bed. I have sheets over me. I'm in my own place. Like when we all have problems in our life, right? We all have problems, and they hurt in our own unique way. I'm not taking that away from you. But when you really see what you're grateful for, it puts your perspectives. It puts your problems in the greater scheme of things are so minuscule. Our problems, the things in our daily life that we think are problems, aren't really problems. Our problems aren't really problems in the greater schemes of things. And like I said, it's emotionally impossible to be grateful and upset at the same time. So if you start your day off, feeling grateful, you're just gonna roll with the W's. That's momentum.
Many years ago, I was, worrying about things that maybe I was exaggerating. And I'm talking to my brother about it, and he says, you know what? I have a book for you that I think will help. He gives me How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. He says, don't even worry about reading the whole book. Just read the first chapter.
Yeah.
The first chapter is Live in Day-Tight Compartments. And what he basically explains in the book, and this is many years later that I'm explaining this, so I'll get some of it wrong, but he's explaining that, look, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. You have today. Yep. So live today. This is your day-tight compartment. Live today, and understand that most of the things we worry about, that we fear that will happen, most of them never really happen.
Yeah.
So we could spend our entire day worrying about something that may never happen, or we could just live today. And that made a big impression on me, and it started making me to realize, maybe not just live in day-tight compartments, but live in the moment.
Absolutely.
Live in the moment too.
And and that's why I said, living in a state of gratitude is key, because, like I said, on the grand scheme of things, the things that we worry about on a daily basis,
it's crazy.
These aren't problems. These are not problems.
So, social media, you have a lot of followers. With a lot of followers comes some critics.
Yeah.
So you have, I'm sure, and by the way, I should actually say this, that you're one of those people. We had Frankie Edgar on the podcast. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of people saying negative things about him. For the average person, it would be a tremendous amount of people.
Yeah.
But for a guy as successful as he is, he has a lot of support on social media. You have more support than any other celebrity that I know on social media. People, Nick, thank you so much. You inspire me so much. And I see that a lot. Every now and then I see a negative comment. But you seem to handle it pretty well. How do you deal with critics?
How do you deal with critics?
And I mean you in particular.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how do I deal with critics is, thanks, thank you. Everything that people say, I start to think of why they said it and kind of see where they're coming from. Perspective is everything, I feel like. And for the most part, I don't really delegate any energy to anything negative anymore. And that's how I deal with critics. If something isn't, making me feel good, or it doesn't have a positive vibe with it, I cut it. Or I don't even show it any energy. It's not even worth it, because, lions don't lose sleep over opinions of sheep, and that's the bottom line. So just not delegating any energy to anything that doesn't benefit me in a positive manner.
I like something you just said when you said, well, I listen to them and try to see where they're coming from, but I don't lose sleep over it, and I don't let it affect.
Yeah.
But I like that you actually, because I've said this for a while, when I have a critic, because being an author,
yeah,
I have critics, and I have people that post really nice things, and every now and then you get something that's not so nice, but I'll read it and I'll try to say, is what they're saying, is there any value to it? I won't let it change the direction that I'm going in with my life, though.
Yeah.
I won't let it slow me down. I know you're the same way.
Absolutely.
But I like the fact that you just said that. Yeah, I'm going to try to absorb it.
And that's been a fairly new mindset for me. I feel like I've grown a lot in a year, just of me moving from Jersey to Tampa and living on my own, and basically just analyzing people and why they feel that way, why they said that, what are they going through, just like I said, perspective is everything. And when you have perspective, you don't really let anything bother you. Yeah. And that's how I look at it. And like I said, I don't delegate any energy to anything that's negative. It's really not worth it.
You're an empathetic person. I think empathy is the ability to see things through another person's perspective. So maybe that's all part of that too. And I can appreciate that about you. Now, I want to just share one last story before we tell people how they can get a hold of you. Okay. So I'm looking at your Instagram one day, and I see a picture of you with The Rock.
Yeah. The man. The goat.
The goat. And I say to my wife, I said, Laura, you're not going to believe this. Then I show her the picture of you with The Rock, and she's like, get out of here. I said, I need to know what happened. Tell me what happened.
So I was out in Vegas. This is a crazy story. I was out in Vegas for Mr. Olympia, the expo. And it was a Saturday. And it was the last day of the expo, and I didn't go. I don't know. I just was hanging around. I was like, I'm not going to go to the expo. And we were, hanging around, and I said, you guys want to go just mess around in the gym? Like, let's go get a quick lift in. I had a couple buddies that I was staying with, and we went to one of the more well-known gyms that where, everyone films at, everyone goes. And I go in there, and my buddy immediately comes up to me. He's like, hey, it's real low key. Like, no one really knows, but The Rock's up there lifting. And I laughed, and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, he's up there, man. I was like, are we, am I still allowed to lift? I'm trying to get my lift in. I was still I was on prep for my competition.
So you were more concerned with that,
yeah.
Even though you're a big fan.
Yeah, so I was on prep for my competition, and I was with about four other people, and I was going up the steps, and there was 3 security guards to the right of the steps, and The Rock was doing dips behind them in a hoodie, very just covered up, and I was like, oh my God, that really is The Rock. And I told my buddies, I said, listen, not only does this guy already know who I am, I said, but we don't need to go up to him. I said, if he's the way he presents himself, he'll come up to me. We won't need to bother this guy. Like, I don't want to bother him.
And you say that because he's tweeted stuff out about you before.
Yes.
I've seen him do that.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, we don't need to be, all up on this guy's stuff. And so we didn't. And we went, I was in prep. I took my shirt off. I started my lift, and he was all over, doing different workouts. And at one point, he was right next to me, like doing bicep curls, right? Like, just staring in the mirror. And, I didn't acknowledge him at all. I wasn't staring at him. I wasn't doing anything. I was motivating my buddies. We were lifting. And then he went over into a corner, and he took his headphones off, and people were like, oh, and they ran over to him. And, he started taking pictures with people. And my buddy was like, yo, I'll just go up there, like, just see what's going on. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, whatever. And he came back. He's like, yeah, he already wants to talk to you. He's like, the security guard, like, they're going to escort you. He wants to talk to you personally. I was like, I told you, like, we don't got to bother this guy, man. We really don't. So he finished his lift. I finished mine, and they brought me over, and I have it all filmed, the interaction, and he's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, I'm a big fan. He's like, I just want to, you know, thank you for everything you do. And we got to talking, and you know, he asked me for a picture first, which was pretty crazy for me.
Yeah.
He's like, "Can I get a picture of you, man, please?" I was like, "Yeah," but I told him the one thing that I told him, and it really, I'll never forget it. I said, you know, I tell everyone I'm gonna do what you did, and the meaning behind that is everyone knew you for wrestling, WWE, and college football, right? And then you just branched down to acting and everything, and you just, you know, blew up. You just crushed everything. I was like, I'm going to do that.
That's how you started wrestling.
Yes, and I was like, I'm going to branch out into all these things. And I told him about my book and how, you know, it was about confidence and implementing into these in all the industries. And he said, "You know what?" And I said, "What's up?" He's like, "You're exactly right." He's like, "You're like me." He said, "Whatever industry they put you in, you will adapt and crush it." And that's what we do. And we kind of ended off like that. We, you know, dabbed him up. He's like, "Thank you so much," you know. And it was crazy because, you know, neither of us were, I mean, that's The Rock, you know, people like, you know, freak out when they meet him. It was very organic, very real, because like it was an instant sense of, you know, respect. Like he respected what I did, and we were mutual fans.
Right.
And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And I remember them taking down my Instagram info, and I was like, man, if he posts me, that'd be huge. You know, The Rock's, I think the second most or the third most followed person on Instagram in the world.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, I was like, he knows what my show is. I was like, maybe he'll post me on my show. I was 5 minutes from stepping out the first ever time for prejudging, and he posted me.
Wow.
And my boy was like, "Yo, look at the phone." And I was on The Rock's page, and that picture of me and The Rock is, I think, the most liked picture he's ever gotten.
It's amazing. It's
one
a
of the most.
great
It's over,
picture.
like,
and there's a
3
video of
million
it
likes.
too, right?
Yes, I posted a video of me and him hitting the most muscular,
Yeah.
a little most muscular pose, but I also have in my phone I have the full interaction of me and him. But
somebody wrote a
amazing.
story, the inspirational moment when The Rock meets Nick Santonastasso.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a really, really cool little story that they had written about that. How can people get a hold of you? I know they can follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
You want to spell your last name so they...
Yes, Nick Santonastasso. Last name is Santonastasso. You can find me on Instagram at NickSanto534, no spaces, SANTO. And if you type in zombie prank, you'll find me there too. On YouTube, anything. If you type in Norman Reedus prank, that'll pop up. But I'm the Nick with the really long last name.
And if they wanted to get a hold of you, say someone wanted to bring in to speak to the kids, their church, their business.
Yes. My email is for booking is nicksantobooking@gmail.com. And that's NickSanto booking@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Nick, thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
time.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, man. I had a blast on here.